Hello, everybody, and welcome back to Talking About Birds, the only Cardinal podcast that is also banned from Canada, but for very different reasons. My name is Nate Heininger, and I am joined, as always, by my co-host, Ben Samorka.
I have been pulled over by a water mountie before. And
There's definitely a record.
There's definitely a record. I was wearing a Blues shirt, and it was right after the Blues won. And he was talking to me about hockey while writing me like a $300 ticket. It was very nice.
Well, among many things this week, we are going to be talking about the mentioned border issues, the upcoming trade deadline, and some notes from the injured list. If you have an idea for the opening joke, tweet us at Talk About Birds. Ben, before we get into just all the mess that the last week was, I want to tell you a story. And I know you know the broad strokes of this, but I want to go a little bit more into detail with you and with our listeners because I had an experience this last weekend, and I want to share a story of a true hero. So I went to Chicago this weekend, and me and wife and our daughters, we did a really quick trip to Chicago, like drive up Friday afternoon. They were actually there for a bridal shower for this guy, for Ben,
my
wife, his soon to be wife. So we went up there, and our oldest daughter has been really into like the idea of the beach and like playing in the sand and all of that. And middle of the summer, beach is good. They I don't know what I was going for there, but we had a little bit of time Saturday morning, and there was a beach on Lake Michigan, like right by our house, but right by our Airbnb. And so we thought, okay, Saturday morning, we'll get up, we'll take the girls to the beach for a couple hours, and then Molly will go do her thing, and I'll bum around Chicago with the kids.
Fill the
it was
Airbnb
great.
up with farts.
Yeah, well, that was going to happen regardless. But we don't put that on the itinerary. That's just an expected outcome.
Sure.
So it's great. Having a great time. Beautiful morning, a little overcast, great wind coming off the beach. Really lovely. Kids are running around having a great time. And I am out barefoot, shorts, and I'm maybe, it's important
for the
legs story.
Away. Okay.
And I'm at the sort of the edge of the surf. So the waves would break and cover my feet. But not much more than that. And I had been playing with Lola, and I looked down and realized at some point in the last 2 minutes, my cell phone was gone. And it's not just my cell phone, it's my phone. And I also have a wallet case on it. So it's my phone, my driver's license, my insurance card, and my primary credit card. Okay. I haven't had a wallet in 12 years. I've been doing the wallet phone thing for a long time because I've never lost an iPhone. I've never lost anything like that before. I'm neurotic about the location of my phone. But these shorts,
because it's your entire life is stacked on top of it. Of course you are.
Yeah, right. And so I'm neurotic about it. And I had just been taking pictures with the girls on the beach, and these shorts have smaller pockets. And I guess at some point while sort of jumping around with the girls, it fell out of my pocket and was just gone. I don't know. I was not in the water, but I was at where the water sort of breaks.
Yeah, the lake took it.
So the lake reached out and grabbed it
Right.
and pulled it in. And I proceed to spend a very demoralizing, basically like half an hour crawling around in the surf, like poking my hand down into the sand.
Well, I'd like to point out your wife was generous enough to post some of those videos on Instagram, which I was able to enjoy,
Yeah.
and I did enjoy quite a bit.
She followed a delicate balance of being helpful while also making sure to document my misery, which honestly I respect. I'd be doing the same. So I'm like hands and knees. I'm fully in the lake at this point because I had not been planning on that. But I'm like, it's not a brand new iPhone, but it's one of the more recent ones. And so it's an expensive device.
Yeah.
I'm in a different city and it has my driver's all the reasons. So I'm like, I gotta find this thing. And I spend a long time just rooting around like some sort of weird little crab, digging in the sand, thinking like maybe, it got like slightly covered. I don't know. I'm just digging around, half panicking. Worst moment, I get hit by a wave so hard that it knocks my glasses off. And my glasses go into the lake with this wave.
No.
And I'm like, oh no. And I'm like now frantically shuffling around. And I'm like, Molly, get in here and help me. So it's maybe a real low point for me. And somehow miraculously, I managed to grab my glasses. I caught I had my hands on. I was like, frantically rooting around, and I caught the edge of them as they were being pulled out into the lake, and I grabbed them. So I had contacts. It wouldn't have been like the end of the world for that weekend, but it would have sucked to lose both my phone and my glasses in a 1-hour trip to the beach. But ultimately, can't find it. We have to go because Molly has to drive a little ways outside of Chicago to get to this thing. I'm not going to make her miss this because I lost my phone. So I leave the beach demoralized. I get a really depressing ping on my watch that says, "You've left your iPhone behind," which I'm like, I know, which is also confusing because it means it can tell where it is, but I couldn't find it. So anyway, I'm very unhappy about it, unhappy with myself. It's stupid. I'm thinking through like, got to get a new phone, got to get a new ID, got to cancel the credit card, all these different things, right? And so I spend several hours in our Airbnb with the kids, and I find there's a bunch of Apple stores in Chicago, and Molly goes and does her whole thing. Several hours later, we come and go downtown. We have a really nice burger at a great place in Chicago called Small Cheval. I highly recommend if you go out there. It's a super tasty burger.
Did you get the butter pickles?
Wait,
you're not a pickle boy, are you?
Well, I have become more of a pickle pal over the last few years. So I never was one, but I at this point would consider myself a pickle pal, though I don't like them in every. I still don't like them in every every format, but like a chicken sandwich, like a hot chicken sandwich with pickles on it is one of my favorite things. And the pickles really, I will, really, set it off. So in that form, I like it. I'm not as big of a fan of them on burgers still, but I don't hate it like I used to.
All right.
So,
well, shout out Small Cheval. They have bread and butter pickles. They just come in a mason jar and they're delicious.
Ooh. So where that is, it's in Wicker Park, and there's an Apple store in Lincoln Park, which is like a neighboring
I become so numb.
Too soon. And so I'm like, all right, Molly, can we swing by the Lincoln Park Apple store? I'm going to go in and I'm going to get a new phone. I'm depressed, but like I need to have a phone, especially in like a different city, So we go I have to wait for a while. It's the Apple store. It is what it is. I wait for a little while, get the phone, and seriously get my credit card back, go to Molly and the girls who are waiting at the front entrance. We're still in the front. We're like in the front area, the lobby area of the Apple store. And Molly gets a phone call, and she looks down at her phone, and it's from me. I haven't activated the new phone yet.
Right.
And so she's like kind of confused. like, maybe something with the purchase or whatever. And she's like, and she answers it. And there's a woman on the other side who their daughter found my phone in the lake. This is 12 hours
Wow.
almost, maybe 11 after I'd lost it. They found it in the lake, went to their car to charge it because it'd been dead. And because I had failed to charge my phone overnight, so it was at like 20% or something when it fell into the lake. And so they charge it and it comes on, and I had put it in. I felt like a desperation plea, but I'd actually gone through the process of putting it in lost mode and putting like, you could put a little message on the front, so I'd said like, if found, please call this number, and it was Molly's number. And someone found it and did. And they waited for us to drive from Lincoln Park all the way back to the beach.
Wow.
And I got my phone back, and it was, still wet. Like it says, like a leather wallet case was like still wet, sand all in it, like little rocks and stuff in the pouch.
Yeah.
And it spent the full day in the lake. And now
probably having a great time.
Yeah, I think it was definitely having a great time. And now a couple days later, it is totally fine. It's as if it never happened. So I say all this to say there are good people in this world. And Lexi from Chicago, I am forever indebted to you.
Yeah.
And we will pay this forward. I did also get
Did you buy her a burger or anything? Okay.
Well, I got her Cash App name, and she was like, I didn't find it. My daughter found it. And her daughter was like, I don't know, 8, 10 years old. Sure. I didn't get her name or anything. Like,
nice to meet you.
I got the woman's Cash App, and I was like, I'm going to send you something, like buy her something, like whatever you do, whatever you want with it, but you're good people. And thank you for being a good person. Cause it would have been so easy for them to, it's not like an iPhone that's in lost mode is particularly valuable because Apple kind of shuts them down, but still, like, they could have just left it on the beach. They could have kept it and tried to sell
that shit across the water. Yeah.
Well, yeah, you're a trash person, so I'm glad it was like a Lexi that found it and not a Ben. So I am, incredibly grateful to this person, and I just could not believe it. I could, like, the circumstances of someone finding it in the lake and then going through all the process to get it back to me. I was super grateful.
Yeah. How do you feel about the fact that you looked and you looked and you looked, and a 8-year-old found it without even trying?
Not great, Ben. I thought about that too. I'm like, how did she find it? But I think, I don't know. I did not interrogate this child about, where it was and how she found it. My guess is that it had gone like deeper into the lake than I was searching, and she was out there playing more and found it or something like that. But I don't know. I'll never know. But I could not believe that it was found and returned to me. And it besides it being a significant dollar amount savings for me, it was just like getting a new driver's license sucks. Everything sucks, So Chicago, sorry about the Cubs, but everything else, you're great. I love you.
All right. End of episode. Good job.
Yeah. So, hey, if you find a phone out there, take the extra effort to help someone. Pay it forward for me. So,
or see how far you can skip it.
One or the other.
You can skip an iPhone pretty good.
I bet you could if you took the case off. Yeah, maybe.
Let's try that while we're at the Lake of the Ozarks
with your phone.
With my phone. Yeah, that's fine. Whatever.
Yeah,
Lexi will find it for me.
What a twist. So now that we're done talking about good people, let's talk about
interesting heel transition here.
I've gone back and forth on like, how much do we talk about this? At this point, it's a couple days past the controversy. Once again, our show perfectly bookends interesting Cardinals related conversations. But I think we should at least talk about it a little bit. And of course, what we're referring to is the recent revelation and outcome of Nolan Arenado, Paul Goldschmidt, and Austin Romine not being vaccinated and not able to take the trip to Toronto.
Yeah.
Most people are probably burnt out by this conversation at this point because it's been fervent on both sides. So I don't think we're going to go too far on this. Ben and I actually haven't like talked about how we're going to talk about this before, but I will say this, and then Ben, I'd love to hear your thoughts.
Sure.
So I do believe that it is a person's choice to get the vaccine. I don't think, we should do any sort of forced, shots or anything that hold people down or whatever. But just like it's their choice to not get the vaccine, it is also our choice to hold them in significant judgment and ridicule for the lack of making that choice. I was surprised, especially based off of things like what Arenado said very recently about doing everything you can to win. So I was surprised to find out that a guy like that would sacrifice even a single game for something like this.
Right.
I was disappointed. These are two of my favorite players, even before they were Cardinals. They were two of my favorite players, and it's hard for me to separate this from them now. I think it will be a part of the legacy of these two guys, for better or worse. I don't. I think like any two games, it's whatever, and the outcome of these two games does not change the decision or change my opinion on whether it mattered or not. Like I saw a lot of people. We're recording in between the two games, so we've seen that they got blown out in game one, and you saw a bunch of people saying things like, "Well, see, it didn't matter. It's the pitching," and I'm like, that's the worst argument you could be making because that is
of salty takes it's too damn high. My goodness.
Yeah. We don't know how the game would have gone yesterday if we had our two best players in it.
It is unknowable.
Yeah. Because who knows? Maybe the rally that the Cardinals had earlier on actually results in 6 runs instead of 3. And now the whole game is different because the Blue Jays are using their bullpen differently. The Cardinals are using their bullpen differently. Everything is different with these guys. So you cannot say that it does not matter. You also can't say that it would have mattered. We just truly don't know. So you can't use the results. Results don't necessarily
I think that you can assume a different outcome. It would not have gone exactly the way it went. To what degree, we'll never know.
We'll never know. Yeah. So I was frustrated. I'd always, these two guys had seemed like big leaders on the team, and now it almost feels like they're like outliers on the team when you consider that everybody else got it.
Right.
I don't know. So what are your thoughts, Ben?
Well, so I'll start this off with, and I was at the Rockies White Sox game last night, and this came up in conversation with Mary, and I was wondering, what do you think that they were doing last night, and what do you think that they're doing tonight? Do you think that they're like, do they have like a man cave that they're sitting and watching, and like with the lights off and stewing quietly, and they've asked their wives and children to leave them alone? Do you think that they're doing it together? Do you think they're eating hot wings, drinking a couple of beers? Like, I was very curious, like, what do you think that they're doing these 2 nights? Because it's just such a weird thing. Like, you're not injured. You're just not with the team. Is there a watch party? I'm just like personally curious on what's going on there. Outside of that, I definitely have takes. I look at it through my own lens, right? Like, I work a job. This might surprise a lot of people, but I am employed. This is not my main financial source, this podcast, which is probably surprising. But I'm required to be vaccinated and prove vaccination status and booster status to go in the office. I think probably a lot of people are in that same boat. So I look at it through my lens. I got to do this to go to work. It's a reasonable expectation. You don't have to do it. I could work from home and to some degree, and it probably impede my work like it does these guys. So I kind of think of it like, I feel no, you got to get vaxxed to do your job. I think what bugs me about this more Because I agree with you. Make your own choice. I don't really care. I do have. I think the counter argument to that is like it is a personal decision, but it also affects people immediately around you, like maybe your teammates or their families or
Right.
whoever it might be. So
Well,
I
that's
think like
my if I can real quick, my point is that I don't think we should hold people down
right,
and give them shots, but I think that they should absolutely understand the repercussions of making that choice. The repercussions are being seen in the way that
yeah.
they are being seen by a lot of people right now.
And I also think that there's like just strictly talking on the baseball side of it, there is a competitive advantage to being vaccinated
Yeah.
because, well, first off, you wouldn't be missing these 2 games. And I agree, 2 games, not a huge deal, but it also just decreases your likelihood of infection throughout the whole season. And we saw what that can do. The Cardinals had this same thing happen to them during the pandemic year where the whole team was sidelined for like a
Yeah.
week and a half, and several other teams were, and most of the players got vaccinated after that. So I think there's like a strictly competitive advantage nature to that because obviously COVID testing is still happening and what that does to players, and COVID IL is still a thing, and we've seen many teams lose players out, and not to mention players bounce back oddly from COVID. I think we
Right.
all probably know somebody who's had long COVID or whatever, and they're my dad still can't taste certain things. And that obviously doesn't affect a baseball player on the field, but there are just there are these
Right.
things. There is a competitive advantage. I don't think that can be argued with. And I'll kind of round all that out with I wonder, and I don't wonder too far because I'm pretty sure I know the answer. But let's say you look through the crystal ball, and somehow it's a bird versus bird World Series. We got the Blue Jays, we got the Cardinals. Are you telling me that if we were in the World Series against the Blue Jays, or a series that mattered to it a degree like that, let's say if they could be a divisional series, but obviously the only actual situation would be a World Series, that they would just not play? I bet you they would both get vaccinated for that, for a World Series.
Right.
And that is like
It's
the fact
hypocritical.
that the fact that you
Yeah.
will bend potentially, again, this is me speculating on these two gentlemen, but I know we've heard other players say this exact same thing. And it was obviously a topic of conversation with the Yankees, and their clubhouse. But I would bet a decent sum of money that both of them would get vaccinated if that scenario were to occur, meaning that they would question their quote unquote values or whatever this is coming from, which again, they have the right to hold, but they would, again, I want to be very clear from my perspective. I would expect them to go back on those if the stakes were high enough. And that is the part that I just don't understand.
Yeah.
And I'll caveat that even more. I'm clearly not a professional baseball player. There's nothing in my professional life that will have the weight of a World Series championship on it. Obviously, like nobody's watching me do my job like we are them. So I'll give them credit and everything like that. But I can only be so empathetic and kind of thinking that out. And other than
Yeah.
that, I think as far as like the responsibility for the fans is to, I think we can give them as much shit about this as we feel comfortable, and kind of get the season back rolling after the game on Wednesday.
Yeah.
But the I mean, it's like everything. Everything's got to be politicized, and everything's got to be life or death. I don't think that any of that is necessary, but I can absolutely judge somebody for a personal choice that they're making.
Yeah.
I mean,
That's
that's the way
our
the world
right.
works.
Just like it's their right to not take the shot. It's our right to consider them, short-sighted, which
Yeah,
is part of the frustrating thing about this is that, there are legitimate reasons for people to not get vaccinated. And I want to make sure that we say that there are doctor recommended reasons not to.
sure.
And if your doctor has recommended that you not for any number of reasons, absolutely don't. Take the precaution, do what you need to do to be safe, whatever. Every indication from Goldschmidt and Arenado is that that is not the case here. They have bought into whatever conspiracy theory they're believing about the repercussions of the vaccine that now billions of people have had for over a year. So, reporting said that Arenado is not taking it because he wants to start a family soon, which means he believes the conspiracy theory that it impacts male fertility, which is
Yeah,
not true.
right.
I don't know what Goldschmidt, he said he's done his own research and consulted with many doctors. I would love to know what research that was. That was more thorough than the multiple scientific studies across the entire world have indicated. But
And
so
I
yeah,
think it's a good time to remember. And you can make fun of Paul Goldschmidt, you can make fun of Jim Edmonds, you can make fun of many all-star, fantastic athletes for their lack of intelligence. Like these guys,
yeah,
these guys are not paid to think; they're paid to hit ball hard. And I know that's extremely reductive. And I love these guys. I love watching them. I think anybody who watches these teams, the Cardinals, like we do, you feel a certain amount of kinship or a relationship, even though it is obviously one
right,
sided. It's hard not to care, right? It's hard not to care
yeah,
about how these people conduct themselves. And I think, again, like it should go back to you as a fan. You can harbor whatever feelings you have about that kind of thing. And if Nate and I, maybe we've lost a couple of ticks for these guys, but that's our right too. And you don't need to, no one on Twitter needs to gatekeep the way that you or they feel about X player. I think
yeah,
obviously it's very different because it affects people in a different way, but to pick on Jim Edmonds, like we could just as well sit here and make fun of him for his low moral decisions that he makes with his ex-wife and being on TMZ and all those weird things. So like, I don't
yeah.
know. Like, of course we could do that, but as long as you're not hurting anybody, I think that's all fine and dandy, right?
Yeah. Well, that's what that whole mindset of um you don't have the right to have an opinion on this because they have the right to have an opinion on this
Yeah,
is a frustrating point of view. So, I think
yeah,
we've
and
made
I'll.
our yeah,
Oh
go on.
yeah, and I think we were along the same lines. I don't think we need to talk about that anymore. I do think that there was a little added. It's just the car. I mean, it's been hard to watch the team. Hasn't been great right before the All-Star break, coming out of the All-Star break. This news comes out, and then essentially while this news is mid-flight, we find out that Steven Matz, who just came back off the IL, tore his MCL on a play that made absolutely no sense. So I think, Cardinals fans are on
It's a
Bitter
rough time.
Boulevard or whatever you want to call it.
Yeah.
And it's, if you want to
Yeah,
scream.
we're on Bitter Boulevard. Yeah. I'm in Cantankerous County right now.
Hey, that's pretty good. That'll be the first Talking About Birds t-shirt. So I think like everyone should kind of take a step back and maybe realize we were all a little fed up with the team at this particular time.
Yeah.
And it's probably not any one individual's fault, but everything that's kind of been happening just has not been
Yeah.
going well. And if like I just said, then you find out your two superstars aren't going for a little 2-game series in Canada. And you're like, come on, we just need
Yeah.
something to break the right way right now.
Right. Well, hey, flip side, shout out to Johan Oviedo, who, I will give him the benefit of the doubt because I think it's the Cardinals organizations. From what I understand, they have a person whose entire job is to make sure everyone's passports are in line.
Right.
But from what I also understand, that a Cuban passport is incredibly complicated and can take
Yes.
months. And they had been working on it all year, like for this. And they thought they'd get it done, but they weren't able to. So Oviedo went through great lengths to he went to multiple different cities and a bunch of different things in order to be there for the 2 games. So kind of the anti
Well,
Goldschmidt and Arenado.
and I don't have the quote in front of me, but he kind of went on he threw a little bit of side shade at Arenado and Goldie about, doing anything it takes to be there for that series and be there for the team and so on and so forth.
I bet
And,
I can't imagine that this doesn't impact the internal perspective of those 2 guys for the team. Now it's probably not going to matter that too much because they're the 2
yeah,
best players on the team and they'll make up for it with home runs and great plays and whatnot. But still, like if you're
well,
Tyler O'Neill, who was skeptical of it and got the shot last year,
yeah.
like, you got to be a little bit
At,
like, come on, guys.
as a Cardinals fan and somebody who wants to see them do well, I really hopefully Goldie and Nato do something nice, cater a dinner or something like that, and kind of everybody sits down and they get all warm and fuzzy and we move on from this, because it'd be really frustrating to see the Cardinals kind of like lose the clubhouse mid-flight here when the season's kind of in balance. But I don't think that's going
Yeah.
to happen. I think everybody's going to get along, be happy, and hopefully make some trades and some good things will happen.
Yeah. So let's talk about that injured list. The
Oh yeah, one other thing before we moved on, I wanted to say shout out Buck Martinez. It was his yesterday. The Tuesday game with the Cardinals was his first game back. He's the analyst for the Blue Jays and one of my favorite announcers on the TV side. I watch a lot of Blue Jays games just for him. He got diagnosed with cancer in April, so shout out Buck Martinez. He's awesome. Happy to see him back.
Yeah, that was great. Well, you mentioned the Matz thing. I mean, what a bummer. Like he's supposed to be a big part of the rotation this year, has not been, but felt like he was coming back.
He was
The
having
thing the
his best
Cardinals,
start as a Cardinal.
yeah. And the thing the Cardinals need the most is innings, and he's like exactly that. Of all the guys that are on the IL for the Cardinals, you're like, he's the guy who can come
Yeah.
back and give you innings and hopefully quality innings. And that's exactly what it looked like. We were getting back, feeling good, and then yeah, it's hard to judge a guy in the moment. See ball, get ball, catch ball. Their lizard brains are just like going into full reaction in that moment. But like that,
And
I
you're
don't
sure,
know.
Matz probably wants to prove that he's a gamer. He's there for the team. He's probably thinking like, I'm coming out here I'm back with the team. I'm here. I'm here for this final stretch. I'll give you everything I got. And then, yeah, if you hadn't seen the play, Matz was cruising. Like his sinker was just looking fantastic. And he's got a lot of people just standing there still. And there's, a fastball on the inside corner striking them out. It was very, very impressive. Anyways, a small dribbler that goes up the line. Goldie kind of has a read on it. Matz kind of springs over, jumps on it. He lost the footing on his inside ankle, and that kind of slipped, and he fell awkwardly on his outside ankle. I thought it was an ankle injury originally, but it turns out it was the MCL knee, and it was completely torn. Ali Marmol came out, I think it was today, the day that we're recording on Wednesday, and he said that they're going to basically let it chill out for a couple of weeks and do some testing. And if it doesn't respond well, it's going to be surgery. If surgery happens, that's the end of the season for Matz. So
Yeah,
kind of scary. Really not good. If it is gone, I mean, MCLs are MCLs, right? That's a scary injury. I think that unfortunately we need to prepare ourselves for, Matt's 2023 and look for some pitching quickly.
most likely thing at this point is that he doesn't pitch again this year, which is disappointing and layers on the problem that the Cardinals already had. He was hopefully going to be one part of the solution, including some sort of additions, which we'll talk about later. But obviously, that's not there anymore. I wonder if this is one of those things that might have happened anyway if it was weekend and this bad play just jarred it, or if this is truly like a freak accident. We'll never know.
Yeah.
But anyway, so huge bummer. It adds to the need for the Cardinals to get a starter or two or three. It also, I think it lowers the floor on what kind of starter we could get that would help us, if that makes sense. Like suddenly Patrick Corbin actually is a legitimate improvement for this rotation and not just like a John Lester from 2021.
I think it changes the conversation. We'll talk trade deadline a little bit later, but I think it changes the conversation from the Cardinals really, really should get somebody to they don't really have an option now. With Jack being where he is, Matz being where he is, you just have to. The innings are not there right now.
Yeah, I mean, they're risking further, not just bad play, but further injury by exposing these guys for longer than they should, overusing your bullpen. I mean, they do not currently have like even a 4-man rotation. Like what do you do when you only have just a couple starters that you can rely on to go more than 3 or 4 innings? I know they're stretching out Thompson and Liberatore again to down in the minors to bring them back. We're seeing Hicks get multiple innings, but that hasn't really been that great so far. So seems required. But before we get into like trades and trade deadline stuff, we're going to do that.
We have some good news.
We do have some IL stuff that is more fun. Ben, why don't you take it?
Let's talk about that. Yeah, thank God. Okay, Yadi. We have Yadi news. Yadi is on his way back. The expected return for him right now is August 2nd. So that's, 5 days from when we're recording right now, which is great. Knee inflammation appears to be good. Now it's really just getting back in baseball shape.
I'm guessing they're planning the next Wainwright start. So Wainwright starts
Yeah.
today, and I'm thinking they're going to go for like the next Waino start will be his first start back.
Yeah, and I think Cardinals fans probably know this, but the tune-up games in the minors, nobody's going to be paying attention to the results. It's just making sure that his knee responds well, making sure that he getting back into playing mode, all that kind of thing. But that'll be very welcome. I don't expect him to be a huge statistical boon for the Cardinals, but having him back and having some more leadership and just kind of hopefully Kinsler is just. He's just hard to watch at this point. The offense is so bad, and I think we've seen the framing be where it is, and it's just the more we see him, unfortunately, the worse it looks. It just is not going the right way. So even getting old man Yadi back there is going to be an improvement for the team.
If you're going to have a mediocre to bad catcher, might as well let it be Yadi. You know, well, at least he's got that great smile.
He got the smile. At least he can frame pitches and call a hell of a game like that. Those skills have not eroded. And he's paying attention in a way. We saw Kinsler had a really rough play over the weekend where it was the Reds did a double steal. They had a guy on first and a guy on third. They went for the double steal. Kinsler didn't even look the guy on third back. The guy just runs home. Kinsler throws to second base and they score a run, which is something that just Yadi does not let happen because he's paying attention.
The game awareness. Yadi's thought about every possible outcome before they've happened and has a internalized game plan for exactly what he's going to do at any moment.
Yeah, he's almost like a Mentat in Dune. His eyes roll back into his head and calculating, and then boom, the action happens.
I have noticed that he has crazy blue eyes.
So wait, is he?
Isn't that Mentat?
No, they're the human computers. You're thinking of the
I've only
the people that live on Arrakis, Arakian.
Yeah.
Or a Fremen.
Yeah.
Fremen. Jeez.
The Fremen have the blue eyes. Yeah, because of all the spice.
They're addicted.
So I haven't seen the movie yet. Actually,
read the book.
I did read the book. That's why I read it.
The movie.
I've only read the book. I read it. Basically, I read it in January, and I was like, "Let's go see the movie," and then I didn't. And now I'm waiting because I might be getting a new TV soon, and I think the new Dune is going to be the first movie I watch on the new TV.
Dude, you're getting a Dune. It good.
Oh, boo.
All right. Yeah, I thought that was decent, but we'll get back to the IL update.
Dude, you're getting a Dune?
I don't know. Harrison Bader, who's been out for a while with right foot plantar fasciitis, he is in Toronto, so that's good news. It does not look like he's actually going to start. It has been stop and go with that, but I think that we're actually seeing some light at the end of the tunnel. It seems like he is going to play. The walking boot is off. It's really just comes down to like some baseball activity tests, so that will be huge. I think we've all been really happy with Dylan Carlson in center field, but I think it'll be great to have that, with Tyler O'Neill finally being healthy. Having those three guys playing the outfield for a series or two is going to be fantastic to watch. And hopefully Bader kind of hits the ground running. We all know what he can do when he's feeling good and healthy. And then I'll do a quick...
I had seen there was a little bit of a setback on Bader, though. Am I
so originally he was supposed to start yesterday. That was the original plan. His first game back was going to be in Toronto. And yeah, it's, we've talked about this several times since the plantar fasciitis popped up. It's just lingering. It's just not going away like it needs to be. There's inflammation. They're working on it. So they've pushed it back a couple of days, waiting till they come back stateside, although he is with the team. So we're feeling good about that. Very hopeful that, again, it won't be the Wednesday night game, but hopefully the next series, and we'll see him back in the red and white. And then just a quick rundown on some people that we don't have any, you didn't like that we don't have any comeback times on yet. We got Drew Verhagen. Drew hardly know him. Nate's favorite joke.
You are on fire today. This is you're feeling quippy. Drew hardly knew him.
He's got one of those impingements or whatever. Isn't that like the muscle rubbing on the muscle or something weird like that? He has no expected return date, and honestly, I might be ready to just hit the full eject button on the Drew Verhagen experiment. It has just gone so poorly. Every time you think he's going to go well, he gives up a monster bomb.
Yeah.
Don't love that.
That's why we
Dakota
call him Druver. Hardly knew him.
You got paid at least. So good
Yep.
for him. Dakota Hudson, we found out after his start, I think we talked about this last week, but he had neck strain coming out of that Dodgers start. That is progressing somewhat. They're looking at inflammation shots, all that kind of thing. No return date yet. And Juan Yepez still dealing with a right forearm strain. Again, TBD. We don't know on that, although very hopeful. We talked about this last week when we were doing our heroes and hatchlings, kind of catching up on the production, and he's fallen off. But I think we both agree with this. Like, there's life in that bat. He'll turn it around, and he's still a big league player. Now that being said, he might be a national here soon, or any number of other teams' players. He seems kind of like a guy that would make a lot of sense to move, but no news on him yet.
Yeah. Well, I think we said it last week, but standard 24-year-old thing, right? Break into the league, the skills that got you to the league show pretty quickly, and then the league adjusts and you struggle, and then the good players adjust to that adjustment, and their career continues to flourish. And then some guys, they don't. Unfortunately, he had an injury right in the middle of where we're going to find out if he's able to make that adjustment or not. But I think we both have seen, you have to make a lot of adjustments to get through the minors. And I think that we were starting to see it a little bit from him anyway. So I think the skills are there, and he's a big league hitter. To what quality and what degree, we'll find out, or maybe the Nationals or whoever will find out. What I do expect, though, soon is that either by trade or just by this injury, I think his roster spot, or at least his use on the team, is going to be replaced or at least tested out by Alec Burleson soon, who continues to rake in AAA. Unless, of course, Alec Burleson is traded, and we keep Yepez. I don't know, but I think we might see the Burleson show here soon.
Well, and I think what sticks out with the Burleson, and why I think that makes a lot of sense, is just the way the power has kind of come in recently.
Right.
I think he's got, I'm going to look it up right now, but I think he's got like 19 home runs. Which wasn't really like a huge part of his game. I'll correct that. It's 17 at AAA. So
pretty good.
I mean, pretty good power. He's slugging over 500. That was a bit of a surprise to me. So I mean, not only everything you just said I agree with, but also he's like an actual outfielder, where Yepez is really more of a corner infielder. So you'd have to think that there's a bit of an upgrade there too, especially with the injuries that have been affecting the outfield. It makes a lot of sense. So on board with all of that. Hopefully he's like Corey Dickerson, but effective.
It seems like he's going to get a shot either with us or some other team one way or another pretty soon. I think so. Like that chain of like Gorman, Yepez, Burleson, like that is three of your best trade chips. And so one way or another, whether it's for SOTO,
three of your trade chips that you would actually be willing to trade.
Yeah.
Because Walker and Wynn are they're the prize.
Well, these are the guys that you're putting into the trade that are like that juice it to agreement, right?
It gets the deal across the line.
Yeah. Well, but Gorman's, I wouldn't necessarily put Gorman in an equal footing to Yepez and Burleson, but
no.
But Gorman, I would put closer to like the Wynn and Walker. But well, let's talk about that. So I think we're good on the injuries. Some key pieces may be coming back and some still big unknowns. So we're going to talk about the trade deadline, the more fun thing to talk about of the last week than what we just spent 40 minutes talking about. But before we do that, we're going to take a moment to remind everybody that this show is supported on Patreon. If you love the show, or if you even just kind of like it, but want to support us, want to see it grow, consider joining our Patreon. Subscribers at any level get access to our private Discord server. We call it the Bird Scored. Having a lot of fun in there. We did our home run derby draft. It's a slowly growing community. We'd love to have you be a part of it. And shout out to our current Bird Scored members. Our friend who asked a question about a perfect trip to St. Louis doing that soon, so we're really looking forward to hearing how that goes. Hopefully, our recommendations were good and we didn't set them up for a hellish weekend in St. Louis. And hey, if you aren't able or comfortable supporting through Patreon, consider leaving us a review on your favorite podcast platform. It helps and it makes us happy. So thank you for everyone who supported us in any way that you have. Ben, where can people find us online?
Yeah, make sure to follow us on Twitter at Talk About Birds. You can follow us on Instagram at Talking About Birds. And of course, as always, you can email us at talkaboutbirds@gmail.com. Once again, I encourage you to pry into Nate's inner life that is not baseball related outside of this podcast. I'm trying to think. I mean, I think you got a lot of fodder. Just ask him about swimming in the lake. Obviously, a big fan of the lake. Obviously likes to
the
pass
lake
his
tried
personal
to take
responsibility on
the
strangers.
lake took my belongings away from me.
Me and Nate were, before we started recording the pod, we were talking about what we were going to smoke on the Lake of the Ozarks weekend. So he's very passionate about smoking meats and sous videing meats and preparing various meats for consumption. I know he made himself a nice steak dinner last night. Shout out, happy birthday, Molly. And yeah, that should be all. I think that's all I got right now.
Yes, for Molly's birthday, I made myself a nice steak dinner.
Yeah, and you threw her a sirloin on the ground and said, "Eat it."
Yeah, undercooked. She likes it that way.
Monster.
It's actually true. All right, so trade deadline. We really are in no different place than we were last week when the SOTO story started to break.
Yeah.
Other than that, it seems like the trade partners have narrowed and the Cardinals' interest is real.
Yeah.
We didn't really know that a week ago. There was a story that the Cardinals were preparing an offer. And at this point, we are still, of course, it's all rumors, but there have been some differing stories. Some have said the Cardinals have moved on. Others have said, no, it's down to names at this point, which is a late stage of trade talks. The most recent buzzy rumor is that the Cardinals and Nationals are working on a trade that's centered around Nolan Gorman and Dylan Carlson for SOTO. And I do think it would also include either a Walker or a Win, even if you get both Gorman and Carlson. So let's say we look at something like Gorman, Carlson, Win, and Hintz. How do you feel about that for 2.5 years of Juan Soto?
So I've thought about this every day since we recorded the episode, and it is, we talked about, this is just going to, any baseball fan, this is just going to encompass their entire conversation of the way they're thinking about baseball until it's resolved. And where I found myself, Nate, is they just need to get it done. Now, I think if that is what it comes to, I still think that that's fine. I don't know if it's going to cost that much. I think the big question is the Corbin of it all. Is he going to be included? There have been conflicting reports on whether or not he's going to be included. And I got a quote here from Jeff Passan, who's obviously been covering this as well. And rival executives are saying that it's completely asinine and ridiculous, essentially the asking price for Juan Soto. So let's say right now, before the trade deadline, and I'm pretty resolute in the thought that Rizzo wants to get this deal done before the trading deadline. We talked about the external factors, about the learner selling the team and all that last week. So they're asking for about 125, 130% of Juan Soto's value right now. I expect that to go down a little bit. So I think that, or all that to be said, I've kind of come to the point where there's almost no trade the Cardinals could make that I think would be a bad call. I think if Gorman is the centerpiece of the trade, I think that makes a lot of sense. And while I think we all love to see those Gorman bombs, the problem with him is that he doesn't really have a defensive home. Obviously not a great second baseman. He's been more than serviceable, but you look at the Nationals, he'd slide into third base for the foreseeable future. And start there on a regular basis. And that makes a lot of sense for them. It just doesn't make a lot of sense for the Cardinals with Nolan Arenado and Paul Goldschmidt. Like, forcing a
Now,
corner infielder to be a middle infielder is just not going to work. Not going to work, or there is value to be had, I guess, is what I'm getting at. So I think that makes a lot of sense to have him be the center of it. I think including Juan Yepez would make a lot of sense. And I would guess, just because of the way that the Cardinals farm system is loaded, it would be a prospect heavy package. But I want to come back to saying that I think the Cardinals should do it. You look at his projections over the next 2.5 years, assuming health, obviously, for all the players involved. He is, according to the Zips projections, which take that for whatever you want. It's just the projection system that I want to use to have this conversation. He should be the second most valuable player in baseball, second to only Fernando Tatis, who we all know has lots of injury problems, injury history, and I would say is probably a good bet that he doesn't live up to that, just because of what he's been doing, the motorcycles he's been riding. So to round that thought off, you're trading for projected to be better than Mike Trout, better than Shohei Ohtani, better than any player you can think of in baseball over the next 2.5 years. And hey, if the Cardinals make an offer at him after that, 10-400 or something like that, I'd be all for that. Whatever that deal looks like, 10-450 maybe is probably a more accurate number. But I think it just makes sense. I didn't coin this, but somebody said it on Twitter, or people are talking about it. Juan Soto is a unicorn. If you have an opportunity to get a unicorn, grab it. If Walker turns out to be a stud, if Gorman turns out to be a stud, all these things, you just can't predict it. I think of this. Randall Grichuk was drafted 1 pick before Mike Trout.
right.
And I know that's kind of a punchline, but I say that to illustrate the fact that you don't know what these guys are going to be. We know exactly what Juan Soto is going to be, and that is a Hall of Fame player. That is the track that he's on. Obviously, he could get hit by a bus, or his ankle could fall off, or whatever.
Right.
But as the information is right now, it just makes sense. And if you have an opportunity to get somebody like this, you get somebody like this.
You don't have to go very far far back in any list to see just how rarely top prospects actually break in the way that you want them to. Shout out to Jared Kelenic crushing it in AAA for the Mariners right now. He top prospect, can't miss, going to be the face of the Mariners. And now, everyone's hoping he comes up and is able to produce, let alone be an all-star. The
list is net Reynaldo Lopez, who was the big part of, he was the when the Nats were when the Red Sox were trading for I can't remember for Chris Sale. Yeah, that was the trade.
Yeah.
Him and Yohan Moncada were the centerpiece of it. Reynaldo Lopez is kind of a middling reliever, and Yohan is like a fine third baseman. Like, you just, even though it's too unpredictable, Soto is a known quantity.
Yeah, we said it last week, but it's kind of like trading for Albert Pujols in like 2004, right?
Yeah.
Like, what would you give up on your team to trade for Albert Pujols in 2004? Pretty much anything and everything, right? And but the Cardinals would never trade Albert Pujols. No team would ever trade. No team would ever really consider trading Juan Soto, except for this really strange blend of circumstances that have resulted in Juan Soto being available for 2.5 seasons.
And in a bit of not, this is bad news for baseball, but we talked last week. I said that I would probably put my money on the Padres getting him over the Cardinals. Mackenzie Gore is hurt right now, and that doesn't mean you can't trade him. But I wonder if that changes the Nationals and Rizzo's calculus over there. Like, do we trade for this high-end prospect who is currently injured and hope that he gets better, or do we go for this position player package that the Cardinals are presenting? I mean, that seems easy to me. Also, just, we know pitchers break down. So if you're going to trade your Hall of Fame player, maybe go with position players who are, we were just talking about the variability, but less variability with position players than there are pitchers. It makes sense. But it depends on what Rizzo's looking at.
Gorman and Carlson make a lot of sense to me for the type of guys that the Nationals should be looking for, because while they haven't, Carlson in particular, we haven't seen his it really come together he is still obviously incredibly young. He's Juan Soto's age,
Right.
and we've seen the flashes, and you can see why like he was so highly touted, and you could see that it, maybe what he's been doing for the last month and a half. If he does this for a couple more months, you're like, oh shit, Carlson actually has arrived and is fantastic. And Gorman,
Right.
even younger, looks like a true big league power hitter. And that uncertainty of like a Jordan Walker or a Mason Wynn or like a Kellenic or a Reynaldo or a Yoan, all these guys that hadn't actually done it at the big leagues. I could see why they would be going for more big league players, and I'd be surprised if they want to trade for an already broken pitching prospect.
Yeah.
I think the only thing that the Cardinals, what I would be looking to avoid if I was the Cardinals, would be avoid trading Liberatore or Thompson,
Yeah.
because I think, like, obviously if you can get a generational player, you get a generational player. But they are still focused on this year, and it's hard for me to think of like, or I think obviously you now have a lineup of Soto, Arenado, Goldschmidt, O'Neill, Edman, Bader. Like what a crazy lineup.
Yeah.
But you've made the worst part of your team even worse. Even though Liberatore and Thompson haven't necessarily been contributing right now, like they are in the wings and likely able to contribute, and you've only made that problem worse. So I would like to see maybe like, because there's a lot of rumors where Liberatore or Thompson are included in those deals. And I think ideally the Cardinals can go one step down and look at like a Tink Hence, someone who's a couple years away, and have that be the pitching part of the trade and not your like guys you kind of need right now.
Yeah, I think, ideally, and we'll see obviously what they're interested in. But if you take that pool of pitchers, McGreevy, Tink Hence, Graceffo, Thompson, and Liberatore, if you lose one of those guys with a package of position players, I think you're fine with that. To lose
And now
any
we've
more
got
than that
Jerpy.
doesn't. Yeah, Well,
Jerpy should slot right into that like group of kind of ready to contribute guys.
we kind of joked about this last week, but it wouldn't shock me at all to see Jerpy be a part of this. Everyone's scouting, everyone has the information that they have on him. He's pretty much untouched by any org, so it'd be like just getting another draft pick. So I don't think that that's out of the question either. I would not be shocked to hear that. But it really comes down to what Rizzo and team are looking for, and I don't know, but it sounds like we're on the same page. They should get it done. Obviously, you don't just give them all of your team, all of your prospects, but get it done in a reasonable sense.
Yeah. Like Gorman and Carlson, both of their ceilings together, like equal like a standard Juan Soto season.
Well, he's projected almost 8 F4 next year. And I would say if Gorman and Carlson both put up 4 WAR seasons next year, we would be like ecstatic about that.
Yeah.
You're looking at 2 high quality players in one. That's how valuable Soto is.
And he just seems like a cool, fun dude, and the Cardinals need more of that.
And I think what's scary is how young he is. Typically, these types of hitters don't hit their prime until they're, 26, 27, 28. And with his eye,
that's part of these. And crazy part about it is he very likely still has better seasons ahead of him. And he's been in top 10 MVP voting, I think, every year he's been in the majors. And, like some of these Zips projections, you're looking at nearly 50 bombs, over 400 OBP. It's insane. I mean, there's a reason why the Nats are, even though their leverage is a really weird spot because everyone knows they want to trade them, they should be asking for a ridiculous return because it's ridiculous that they're even trading him.
It is.
And it sucks for Nats fans, but maybe they'll get a package of all of our favorite prospects. So outside of that, I'm in full agreement with you, by the way. Just get it done. Even if it includes Liberatore and Thompson, I'll be like, well, that maybe could have been a more ideal trade, but like, whatever. There's no such thing as a pitching prospect. So, speaking of pitching, though, it still doesn't seem likely to me that the Cardinals trade for Soto, even though it's becoming more of a likely thing. The thing that is going to happen, I think for sure, is the Cardinals are going to acquire a starting pitcher, if not 2. And I think it really comes down to the Soto trade will likely impact the quality of that person, because if you do get Soto, you've just dumped pretty much, if not all
Well,
of your your prospects. You don't want to trade any more of them. Like if you do manage to hold on to a win, you're not trading him now then for another
yeah.
pitcher, right?
And I'm going to make a prediction right now, and I'm going to say the Soto deal gets done a day or two before the trading deadline. I think that it is one of those deals that is just the Nats are not going to be are not going to want to be up against the deadline. They're going to want to be able to make the decision they want to make as good of a trade as they can possibly make. So I'm hopeful if, let's say, the Cardinals do get this done in the next day or so, couple of days, then they
Yeah.
have a chance to focus. And what's interesting is the pitching trading market. It seems to just keep growing and growing and growing. I think there's some high end arms out there. We already talked about Luis Castillo. I think that's probably a long shot just because of the added complexity of the interdivision trades, which we talked about last week. Owners just don't like being a part of because of the kind of, I think, the watch pain that exists in that. But Tarek Skubal. His name is hard to say. Tarek Skubal. I had to look
Yeah.
up the pronunciation on Baseball Reference. Has recently become available. I think that he is incredible. I think that he'll probably cost a lot. Not as much as Soto, of course, but I think he's probably out of the realm of possibility. Montaz still in play. I think that is probably a likely place for the Cardinals to go. Something I tweeted before we started recording is I was kind of poking around and looking for pitchers that I thought made sense, and I want to hear your reaction to this. Is going for Jake Odorizzi with the Astros. The Astros have 6 big league starters right now. Lance McCullers is coming back in a couple of weeks, and they have a really good prospect whose name is slipping my mind right now that is basically knocking on the big league door. So they have 8 big league starters. I think you can get Jake Odorizzi for a pretty reasonable price, probably a position player or two. I don't know.
Yeah, my only skepticism of that, because I think Odorizzi has been tied to the Cardinals multiple different times. I just, a team that's in contention, a team that is playing for a World Series is rarely trading starting pitching depth, even if they have it and they they have other needs. I'd be really surprised if the Astros decide to move him, just because him in the bullpen might be helpful for their playoff run, or you never know what could happen in the last 2 months, and they probably will hold on to him. But hey, if you can, I think he's a reasonable target. However, I don't know if you saw. I saw your tweet, and I guess Astros fan who created their account in the last like 2 days said, "God, please take him, please."
Yeah.
So,
Well, and
I don't know. Maybe that.
my response back to that is, of course, you say that when you have Framber Valdez, Justin Verlander, who's probably going to win another Cy Young, Jose Urquidy, Luis Garcia, and Christian Javier are the 6 starters ahead of that. All of those guys have ERAs under 4. All of them strike out a ton of people.
Yeah.
Christian Javier's having a ridiculous season, striking out over 12 per 9. Of course you say that, but we talked about, we're talking about Corbin being an upgrade for the Cardinals. We're talking about Keuchel being the Astros' worst starting pitcher would be a huge help to this current starting rotation. So I hear that, and I'm not expecting Jake Odorizzi to come in and start Game 1 of the World Series or anything like that, but I think he can be got, and he's performing just fine.
Yeah. Well, he would be an improvement. Absolutely. Again,
Yeah.
almost anyone would be an improvement at this point.
God.
I think the Scooble is the Scooble. I think the Scooble take is unlikely.
Yeah.
I don't know if we've talked about it on the show, but apparently the Marlins now, who have an interesting depth of possibilities, are saying they're trading anyone not named Sandy Alcantara. So I've seen Pablo Lopez thrown out as a possibility, but I think you're paying almost as much for him as you're going to pay for Soto, right?
I wonder what that price looks like. The good thing is exactly what the Marlins need, and that's position players. They need bats. So depending, obviously, on what happens with Soto, Juan Yepez to the Marlins, I'm not saying that gets the deal done, but that makes a lot of sense for a lot of reasons. They just need hitters.
Yeah, there's a rumor again. Everything here is speculation, of course, but there was a rumor that the Marlins would take a starting center fielder for Pablo Lopez. So,
Yeah.
would you do Carlson straight up for Pablo Lopez?
Think yes, I would. I will caveat that with I am a very very big Pablo Lopez fan. I have been for a
Yeah,
while. He's somebody I target in fantasy. He is somebody who I like watching. I love. He doesn't have anything super flashy, but he can spot his fastball really well, and his changeup is a plus plus pitch. He's also just a smart person. I think that just the like his game planning and the way that he goes about pitching is very very
yeah.
impressive.
He's
And it
having a
doesn't hurt that
crazy
he's
year
like
too.
he is. It doesn't hurt that he's like 6'5", 240 and built like a god. You know, he
Yeah,
looks the part and all that. So I would love that. But yeah, I do
yeah,
think you're right. I think it's probably expensive. Does Carlson get it done? Maybe. Um,
yeah.
but yeah,
They
I
seem
don't
to be
know.
able to develop pitching pretty effectively down there. Although Trevor Rogers, who was like their big guy, is having a really horrible year. So who
Yeah,
knows what that's about? But yeah, I the other options out there, I a lot of people are there's a lot of trade packages being floated around for Luis Castillo. Right or wrong, I truly don't think the Cardinals are going to trade a bunch of big time prospects to the Reds.
just doesn't
For
happen.
It just doesn't happen. And when you have these other options, like, would you rather dump some of your best players to the Reds for Luis Castillo or some of your best players to the Marlins for Pablo Lopez? You're going Lopez every day.
Yeah,
Same for Scooble.
my prediction is Castillo is going to be a Yankee, and they'll
Yeah.
get Volpe for him, and we'll have to watch that guy terrorize us
Well,
for
I
6 years.
don't want that to happen.
That is my prediction, and it's going to be sad because then he's going to have to cut his dreads and his beard. So we'll get to see what a different Luis Castillo
Will they make him
looks
cut
like.
his
But
dreads too?
they do. You have to have short hair.
High and tight?
Yeah,
Okay.
and not
I would.
necessarily high and tight, but I don't know if you remember when Johnny Damon got traded. He like had a
Oh,
bob
yeah. Yeah.
and a mustache. Looked like a
I've
psycho.
always wondered what would happen if some player got traded and just said no. What would they do? I
I
think
think
most
they
players
just
embrace it because it's become a thing for the Yankees and it doesn't
yeah,
really matter. You're playing for like the biggest team of all time, basically.
right.
So whatever. Um, but it's not like an actual rule. It's something that they all just do.
Yeah, it's a policy or whatever. Yeah, I do. I think that it's becoming a Yankee is such a like kid in a candy store for a professional baseball player. They're just so elated to be on like the franchise. But yeah, I'd
Yeah.
be curious. Like, if anybody was going to do it, it's going to be Odor, who's very very attached to his beard. But he shaved it and was,
Yeah.
I think like I said, I think it's just the ooh, I'm a Yankee. Yeah, whatever you say, boss.
Yeah. Yeah. And whatever. It does, doesn't really matter that much.
But it is
So
weird.
yeah. Yeah. Um, Paul Blackburn, athletics, kind of lesser of the two between Montes and Blackburn, but at least Blackburn is healthy and giving innings.
Yeah,
So I don't know, a lot of options. We're not really drawing any conclusions here. I'll say too, we have perfect timing on this. The trade deadline is in 4 days, and our next episode is 4 days after that. Or is 3 days after that. So like we're right at the sweet spot of misinformation as far
yeah,
as like what's going to actually happen. So we'll be keeping an eye on it, and we'll be on Twitter, and we're talking if anything major happens, we're talking about doing sort of like a bonus in the moment episode that we'll throw in the feed if anything
yeah.
big time happens.
Yeah, and I think really quick, I'll just throw out a couple more names before we move on. I still think catching help would be an interesting thing. Max Stassi for the Angels has to be available. He is a very good defensive catcher that can hit a ball over the wall sometimes. Sean Murphy would also be interesting, although more expensive. And back with the Angels, Noah Syndergaard will absolutely be traded at the trade deadline. I would be shocked if not. He only signed a 1-year deal for LA, and they're pretty much out of it already. So I expect those things to happen. Stassi interests me. Syndergaard, very curious how much he would cost. He has
Yeah.
not been the old Syndergaard, so don't know what to expect there. But as we've said 18 times this episode, any major league pitcher would help the Cardinals
Yeah.
right now. So just a couple
I'd
other
be
names to
happy
pay
with
attention to.
I'd be happy with Syndergaard, and there's a bunch of Diamondbacks people I'd be happy with. I think there's a lot of options. Just depends on what tier. And I
Yeah.
think the SOTO, you get SOTO, you're looking at lower tier starters. If no SOTO, then I would expect one of these higher tier starters. Although, again, the Cardinals rarely do that. So it could, honestly, the most likely thing, knowing the Cardinals, is that we just trade for like Noah Syndergaard and like Max Stassi, or like just Madison Bumgarner, and that's it.
The Mad Bum is one of the few that I really don't want to happen. I agree that he would help the team right now, but I do not want that player with that salary.
Yeah. Well, you do pay a part of it, so I understand why you wouldn't want that.
He's so expensive and he throws garbage.
Yeah.
But anyways, you're right. It is not my money. But I don't like what that could potentially do to, the locking up SOTO long-term conversation.
Right. Yeah. Well, I guess we'll see. We'll find out. Only a few more days left.
Yeah. Yeah. And I think, I think, like you said, we'll definitely do some type of bonus episode if something happens. And I really hope we have to record that episode. So keep your eyes out for that.
Knowing our luck, it's going to happen within an hour or two of us recording this episode. So
we'll just record another one right after.
We'll just do another one. Yeah. Scrap this one. It's been bad anyway.
Yeah.
So before we head to the last segment of the episode, we want to round out some of the other news that's happened from around the league, some notable things. So Ben, why don't you sort of take that?
Yeah, just a few things to hit on. Unfortunately for the poor Rays, who I just always am kind of rooting for because I like the way they go about it and I like some of their players. Kevin Kiermaier, Mike Zunino, their starting center fielder and their starting catcher, both going to season-ending surgery. Very curious how that changes the trade market. We've definitely seen the Rays make some moves around this time of the year, see what they'll do, and see if they'll kind of decide if it's worth it or not to push for this season. That division has been rough and crazy. I mean, the Red Sox are in last place right now, and the Orioles have taken over. It is wild what's happening over there in the East right now.
Yeah, we need another talking about other birds after playing the Blue Jays and the Orioles' little run. There's a lot to talk about with them, but yeah, what a season for the Red Sox. We were like a month in, we were saying like maybe the Cardinals should trade for Xander Bogaerts, and then a month later, it was like, no, the Red Sox are going for it. They could win the division, and now here we are, a month after that. Red Sox are in last place in the East. And
it's
looking
nuts.
It's not
bad.
like they are the laughing stock of like the baseball world right now. Just booting the ball. I mean, that series in Toronto,
they gave up 28 runs in that one game.
The inside the park grand slam.
Yes.
Your boy Tapia.
Yes.
The ball just falls behind Duran, and he just turns and looks at it. While one of the faster guys in the league just burns around the bases.
Yeah.
I don't know if he thought it bounced back in from a home run, or if he was just so stupefied by his own inability to follow the ball, but not a good look to just sit there.
I think Homie gave up on that one. Yeah, that was bad. All right, moving down the line.
What? Hey, we went to Fenway this year, and we saw them get trounced by the Cardinals, and suck it, Red Sox. You
think we cursed them?
I hope. I mean, I did go out and leave some and bury some beads, and
okay.
I did a whole thing, incantation.
Okay. Yeah, there we go. Okay, you found the word. Well, good. I think that's worked out well. The curse of the Nate Bambino. MLBPA rejects the MLB's final offer for the proposal for the international draft. Long story short, the MLB is trying to enforce an international draft on international signees, which would essentially rob them of millions and millions of dollars. Obviously, this podcast is pro player, so it's unfortunate that we weren't able to solve anything there, but we all saw that one coming. Let's see, and a little bit of trade news. I'm shocked at how quiet it has been so far. The floodgates are about to open, but the Mets did make a move. They acquired the thumb himself. Daniel Vogelbach is now a Met. I guess he probably first base DH, against righties, I guess. I don't know really what he's going to do, but probably a good move for the Mets who have who have been really, really good
Did you
this
see him
year.
round the bases the other day? Burner.
Dude's got
He
speed.
got on his horse.
He did. I hope this makes Vogelbach a star. I hope New York elevates him, even though that might be difficult.
Yeah, I think the trade deadline, I think the SOTO thing has frozen it a little bit.
I think so, yeah.
As everyone just waits to see what is the value of something like that. But it always goes this way. It always is like a few moves, and then the 2 days before are just bombshell after bombshell, and then we're all on Twitter till midnight and ultimately disappointed.
Great, thanks, Nate. All right, less depressing. We had the Hall of Fame induction ceremony this week, which is very exciting. Big Papi was the only one to get voted in through the proper channels, so shout out Big Papi. I think we both agree that he's a pretty much a slam dunk, even though he's a DH, as slam dunk as a DH can get. So happy for Big Papi.
If it's a position, there should be representation in the Hall of Fame.
Fully agreed.
It was dumb. It took way too long for oh my god, the Mariners, Edgar
Martinez.
Edgar Martinez, thank you.
Yeah.
Like he should have been in
fully agreed
before it took him to get. If you're not going to have DHs in there, then we shouldn't have relievers in there, like it was dumb that it took that long.
Agreed. Tim Kirkjian, also great writer, somebody who I feel like I grew up with on baseball and like learned about baseball watching Baseball Tonight back on ESPN when ESPN still cared about baseball, got inducted into the Hall of Fame as well, which I think is cool. If you have not heard his speech, it's definitely worth it. You can go find it on ESPN.com. It's very, very thoughtful. He talks about kind of the writers that helped him along the way and his brother, who was a baseball player who had ALS, and it's very, very sweet. And I think Tim Kirkjian is great. And then the Golden Era Committee inducted a handful of people: Tony Olivia, Jim Cott, Bud Fowler, Gil Hodges, Mitty Minoso, and Buck O'Neill. Those last four names are posthumously, which is too bad for them, but cool that they got in and their wives and families were there to help make speeches. But always cool. Love the Baseball Hall of Fame. And congratulations. Shout out Big Papi.
Are you a small hall guy or a big hall guy?
I don't know. I think if you earn it, you earn it. I kind of look at it as era and how you performed in your era. And I generally consider era to be decades. So if you were the best one or two center fielders of that 10-year span, then you should probably be in the Hall of Fame. Like you were the guy for that era. And I think that's how it should be looked at. Which, we've talked about Scott Rowland and Jim Edmonds, and I believe Andrew Jones should be in the Hall of Fame. So I guess probably big, but it needs to be, you need to have a peak of greatness, and you need to be considered the best or one of the two or three best of that position for X number of years.
Yeah. So you're a little less volume and more about peak for.
I would not have voted Tim Raines in. I would have voted Big Papi in. I wouldn't vote Omar Vizquel in. I would vote Pedro Martinez in. And Pedro's a pretty slam dunk, but his window was kind of shorter for a lot of Hall of Famers. Although when he was productive, it was like nobody ever. It's why
Sandy
I bring him
Koufax.
Up. So that's kind of the way I look at it. Like, if like Jamie Moyer, he doesn't have the numbers, but like if you've just been around and accumulated forever, like I believe Tim Raines did, like I don't really understand why. Like, was he ever considered one of the best? I don't know. So
yeah,
not to pick on Tim Raines.
No, it was a pretty controversial pick for a lot of reasons. So I'm pretty much the same. Like I firmly believe Jim Edmonds should be a Hall of Famer. For that same sort of reason you said, like for really half a decade at least, he was maybe the best center fielder, if not top two, and then plenty of accolades to go around it. So okay, what else? Anything else you want to talk about?
No, I think that's all we got. Let's just get the trades going.
Yep. All right. Well, as always, here at the end of the episode, we like to play a silly little game, and you've had some wins and some losses over the past couple weeks. So
oh God.
Oh no. Here we go again. I thought we took care of this guy. Didn't you put a oxygen tank in its mouth and shoot it with a gun?
I was gonna say shark fins.
We need to install a shark fence.
We really do.
Yeah. But well, it's here. So here we go. We have to deal once again.
Is it Shark
with
Week?
the card shark? It's
okay,
Shark Week. Or as we call the game, Card Shark. So
Card Shark.
I've got a pack of the Topps 2022 Series 1 cards.
Right.
We've done this a couple times. I'm going to pull a card. I'm going to say the name of the person, and Ben has to say what team they're on and what position they play. And he gets a point for each of those answers. So some of this sometimes super easy, and then sometimes we get super stumped.
I've been studying, Nate.
Just watching baseball.
Yeah. Damn it. Found me out.
So these cards were made. It's like the first series of 2022. So you get a little bit of when you guess the team, you can either give me the team that they were on that is represented in the card, which usually was like sometime in the middle of winter, so some of these guys, It's like maybe they were traded or signed new contracts. So you can give me their new team or their current team, or the team they were on last year.
Yep, I gotcha.
All right. Starting out. Josiah Gray.
Josiah Gray, wow, legend. Well, if you remember, he was traded from the Dodgers to the Nationals and is now basically the best player on the Nationals outside of SOTO. So, and will be the best player here soon. But yeah, starting pitcher, Washington Nationals. I like Josiah.
Yeah,
I like an undersized, like super stuffy pitcher. He's kind of like Roy Oswalt a little bit. I like Josiah Gray.
I do too. I hope that he's had an up and down season, but I think that the skills are there. So I hope
I think so.
Finds success, and the Nats need him too.
Yes, they do.
Oh, all right. Now this one is going to be tough.
Yeah. Aaron Judge.
Little known guy.
Okay.
You mentioned his draft class earlier this discussion though.
Oh, okay.
Mike Trout.
Center fielder, Angels.
All right.
And my friend.
Nice. Is he a good friend?
Yeah, I like him.
Okay.
Not very talkative. He actually has never spoken to me.
Same. Clint Frazier.
Clint Frazier. Oh, he is a former Guardian, former Indian, former Yankee, current Chicago Cub. And man, has he been nothing.
And what position does he play?
Outfield, but I think he's primarily a right fielder.
Clint Frazier, there he is, depicted as a Yankee.
Doing his swish with the helmet that one time he got a hit. I really thought he was going to be more than he is. The bat speed
Everyone
alone.
did.
Thought he was going to be like Tyler O'Neill.
Yeah. There's a reason he kept getting moved around. He was, perceived value, right? Everybody wanted him.
And now he's a Cub.
Yep. All right. Another little known name here. I think it's pronounced Freddie Freeman.
Starting first baseman, Los Angeles Dodgers, the Doyers.
That's right. But here we have him depicted.
Aw. Poor guy.
In his former team,
the
Atlanta Braves.
He should still be a Brave.
All right. Now I've been making jokes about the names that that are obvious here, but this one actually, Jackson Reitz.
Jackson Reitz. Uh-oh. Jackson Reitz. Don't know Jackson Reitz. Sounds like a pitcher, so I'm going to say I say he's a starting pitcher. I'm going to say he is a Mariner. That's just total shot.
That's a wrong on both counts.
Damn.
I've also never heard this name before. And I do a lot of dynasty baseball stuff, so I usually at least know these names. Jackson Reitz, catcher for the Washington Nationals.
Wow. Okay.
I don't know if this was just a single moment in 2021.
I got to look that one up.
Yeah. Yeah, it looks like he debuted
How do you spell?
in 2021.
He's not even coming up on Baseball Reference. How do you spell his last name?
He had 2 games, 2 at bats. He had a hit. He had a double. Reetz. Jackson Reitz.
He's not coming up on Baseball Reference.
Jakson.
Oh my God, this guy. Okay, I found him. Yeah. Hey, he's got a career 302 OPS plus in 2 at bats.
Well, he had a double in that, and yeah.
Currently playing for Milwaukee at AAA and having a really good year. 975 OPS. Okay. Well, the more you know. Jackson without the C, that's stupid.
Yeah. I think it's cool. Travis d'Arnaud.
Travis, he is the catcher for the Braves.
Boink.
I like him.
You got it. All right. Mitch Keller.
Mitch Keller. Oh, I always get him mixed up with. There's a guy on the Pirates and a guy on the Diamondbacks that have very similar names. I always get them mixed up. I know he's a starting pitcher. Oh, wait, he could also be an Angel or a Royal. Final answer, starting pitcher, Pittsburgh Pirates.
You got it. Brad Keller is a starter on the Royals. I'm not sure who you're talking about for the Diamondbacks, but look at this. It's shiny.
Ooh, hold on to that.
I don't know what it does, but I have a shiny Mitch Keller.
Let's get that.
If this were Pokemon,
Oh, Merrill Kelly. That's who I get it mixed up with.
Merrill Kelly. Yeah.
But I got it.
You did get it. Oh, this is an interesting one. Vidal Brujan.
Brujan. Like this guy a lot. He hasn't done much, but he's a second baseman, shortstop for the Rays. I don't know if he's in the bigs or not.
Look at this card.
Yeah.
It's
like a good one.
It's modeled after like old timey.
Yeah. Hold on to that
baseball cards. It's got a fun fact here on the back. One of the reasons that Vidal was a low-key signing in 2014 was that he weighed only 145 pounds.
Oh, wow. It's like my leg.
Gross.
Gross. He's going to steal like 40 bases one year. It needs to come together.
Connor Wong.
Oh, where is Connor? Man, he has moved around a lot. Brother of Colton. Second baseman as well. Somehow smaller than Colton Wong. Oh, man, I know he was with the Rays for a little bit. I know he was with the Angels for a little bit. He's probably moved around more than that, but I'm going to say second baseman, Angels.
Well, I'm looking it up because at least on this card, he's a catcher for the Boston Red Sox. So
am I thinking of a different Wong?
I think you might be.
Oh, Colton's brother is Keen.
Okay. I was like,
Keen
this
Wong.
guy, I'm pretty sure is not Colton Wong's brother. So
it's Connor, Colton, and Keen Wong are the three. And did you know that they are the only Wongs to have ever played Major League Baseball?
I did not know that. Obviously, the name stood out to me when I pulled it, but
failure. Sorry.
You should apologize.
I'm not apologizing to you. I'm apologizing to Connor.
All right, we are getting there. We're getting near the end here. Brian De La Cruz.
Brian De La Cruz is a horrible outfielder with a decent bat for the Miami Marlins.
You got it.
He's got a bit of swag, though. I kind of like him. He's kind of fun.
His card, that's some swag.
Oh, yeah.
Got some long legs there.
Okay. Is that where swag comes from?
Is this good? Is this good audio?
Yeah. Yeah, I think everybody likes it when you just hold up a card to the screen and I try to read it. People are into that.
Drew Ellis.
Drew Ellis. Ooh. Drew Ellis has got me stumped again. I'm going to say that he is a Diamondback outfielder. So total guess.
Well, you got one half of it right.
Yeah.
Drew Ellis is a third baseman for the Arizona Diamondbacks.
Damn it. Good for you,
And
Drew.
finally, Brandon Marsh.
The caveman, center fielder, Angels. He should kick Trout out of his job, but he won't.
Look at that beard.
There you go. Yeah, that guy's got swag.
Yeah.
Is he going to be good? I can never tell. Can he hit?
He seems good.
Yeah.
I think he's having a good year. It's not great, but a good young player year.
Angels suck.
You earned 19 points.
Yay.
You've defeated the card shark.
Okay. I didn't know it was me versus the shark, but I feel good.
Yeah.
Actually, I felt pretty okay about that. I mean, I should have got the Connor Wong. That was pathetic. But
good misdirect there.
Yeah, it was.
You had the wrong Wong.
Yeah. All right.
All right. Well, that's going to do it for this week's episode of Talking About Birds. Potentially huge next few days for the Cardinals organization. So we'll be keeping an eye on that. As always, reach out to us at Talk About Birds or all the places Ben mentioned before. We're always happy to chat. Hopefully this series in Toronto ends well and the Cardinals can get something going. They need it. And we'll be back next week, as always, with another episode. And until then, go Cardinals.
Fire Andrew Kisner.